I've got my guest, as always, Professor Terence Komal.
Thank you, Mr. Kaka.
And Mr. Benito Mutizwe. Yes, today we're going to discuss attorneys. I was discussing with Prof earlier, and he got some few complaints and said that some attorneys are not ethical, are very, very unethical. So I wanted to make this one open for discussions so that our clients out there and public, they must know whether the attorney is correct, whatever they will be advising them to do or not. Over to you, Prof.
Thanks, Mr. Kaka. I think something that I've established, and this is very recent, in the last couple of weeks, and hence the need for this discussion, is when dealing with a government agency, and you find a lot of it in corporates based on the experience, we've spoken to some of our other colleagues, is when an attorney who essentially does their articles and gets admitted to the non-practicing role. So when they go to that work environment, everybody must know I'm an admitted attorney, but they don't have a Fidelity Fund certificate, and they are on the non-practicing role. So they tell everyone they're lawyers, but they work for a corporate. And that's not in dispute. They're admitted legal practitioners. They work for a corporate. But when you ask them to maintain the ethical standard to that of their peers who are practicing attorneys, they say, no, I work for the entity. The entity will tell me what to do. Now, my difficulty, and you've got to guide me, is I've looked at the code of conduct of the LPC. Even in the medical world, the guideline for negligence says a reasonable level of judgment. But for legal practitioners, right at the beginning of the code of conduct, it says you must maintain the highest level of standard. So there's no window of error. So my frustration with that is we've had an attorney who's dealing with, two attorneys actually dealing with matters that I have an interest in, and they've come back and said, I'm waiting for my employer, I'm waiting for this one, fully well knowing what they're doing is unconstitutional, against the law, unethical, against their rules, and they sit back and say, but sorry, I'm an employee. But you also are an admitted attorney. It's almost as if you come to me as a doctor, but I'm working for a company X. That means I must shirk my ethical duties. I think it's untenable. And the public at large don't know that. That ethical standard required of non-practicing attorneys, they still admitted, remains the same. I'm not sure what your experience and thoughts are.
Mr. Benitos?
Well, it's at the center of this, Prof, and thanks for raising this difficult discussion. It's ethics. I think we are all bound by ethics. Once you lose in politics is political morality or professional morality. I think that's where you lose it. But there's a recourse if a professional is not abiding by their code of practice or conduct. There's a recourse for you. You can approach with attorneys. You can approach the legal practice center. You can approach other bodies, or you can confront them and call them out. I think we have arrived at a time where we need to blacklist, fly-by-nights and blacklist people who are unethical.
Yes.
Because there's a close relationship between a lack of ethics and corruption. It's essentially corruption that we all of us must fight. So I'm persuaded by your argument and the need to discuss ethics of professionals, not only in the legal field, in the medical as well, and in other fields. But I think the standards can be compromised. We all have to push ourselves to set it, especially those of us who serve clients. We need to push ourselves to a satisfaction of clients, but also our professional ethics must always denote what we represent in different professions. And I think I can agree more with you. We've had cases where those of us who work with communities find a lot of cases where people are not aware of some of the things you are raising, and anyone can come in and say, I do this thing, I can represent you, and nobody questions those kind of things. So there's a lot of lawyers who are struck off the roll, for example. There's a lot of practicing medical practitioners who are struck off the roll. There's lots of financial advisors who are unethical in their dealings with people, and the Financial Services Board sat inundated with cases of malfeasance, unethical conduct from those sectors. So I think across the board, Prof, I'll agree with you in principle that ethics cannot be compromised. Standards, professional standards cannot be compromised. At the center is in our integrity, all of us in these professions. And I don't want to selling out attorneys but I want to speak about the, across the board, that we have to live according to the fundamentals of professional service that we offer. And this is across the board, whether you are a teacher, whether you are a pastor. There's a lot of fake pastors that we need to confront, are dishonorable to the professions. I think we need to call it out. The same way we must call out corruption,
100%.
The same way we must fight, unethical conduct anywhere in our spaces.
I think the topic that we are discussing today is a very serious and very interesting topic, Prof. and Mr. Motitso, which I think we need to come back and give it more time to discuss it. But what I wanted to ask Prof. and Mr. Motitso before you come in, you see, as an attorney, you are expected to act at certain kind of a level of maturity. Not only that, Prof., we are the office of court, and we are expected to act as such. So what will be your closing remarks on this topic, Prof.?
Mr. Kaka, on a much, much lighter note, and given the timely link to the current interviews happening at the judiciary at this point, with or without the Plasco-Nevin rules, I think we have a dispute of fact here, because spoken like a true lawyer, Mr. Benito moved us to everyone else, so leave the lawyers alone. But I agree with you, I think it includes everyone. But again, it's not a dispute of law, it's a dispute of fact, on a light note. But the reality is we're hoping some of our learned colleagues in other fora will appreciate that with us. But I do believe we all need to be held to the highest standard. Because when people come to both attorneys and doctors and any professional actually, as lay people, they have a legitimate expectation to be entitled to the best possible service that's not influenced by any other factor, but what is in their best interest.
Wow, that's powerful. Your closing remarks, Mr.
Well,
Motitso?
again, I can't agree more with Prof. I think the professional ethics is very important if we want clients to respect what we're offering. I think all of us are bound and must live in terms of the codes and the oath of our offices. I think you want a judge who you have trust in, who you believe they will dispense justice in the best interest of society, but of progress of society, for peace and for growth and for nations to grow in believing in the systems that governs them. So I think for me it's an important thing. That's why I broadened the topic, so that it's all professions that we must hold to account, and not just one to the exclusion of the other. But I think I hear the point that Prof is emphasizing, that with, as you say, officers of the court needs to really commit
to the parts,
and stick to, obey the ethics that guides them.
Thank you very much. We will come back on this topic. It's a very interesting topic. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all your emails and supporting us in your Facebook and Instagram. Please keep on asking questions. You can criticize us, or you can send us any topic that you want us to discuss. Thank you. Thank you, Prof.